Chico. I want to welcome you all here tonight to talk about housing, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Try to reach out to all the stakeholders we could think of that had interest so that we could give you some updates of what we have and also to hear what your suggestions are. We've got some task force members here that will be helping and guiding us, but as you know, Butte County is an engaged community and that we need to have your opinions as we move forward in this process. I'm going to introduce my colleague Randall Stone, also a city council member, who will acknowledge the other elected officials in the room. Randall?
Thanks very much, Anne. So we have a little bit of a challenge sometimes called the Brown Act in the state of California. So I start ticking off which elected officials are here and which jurisdictions they're in so that we don't create a conflict where there's four of us in a quorum of people discussing these issues. So I want to acknowledge that at least if another council member walks in the door, some of us are going to have to keep very quiet. But starting off, Melissa Schuster is a Paradise County council member. She's here tonight. Tammy Ritter, supervisor-elect for District 3, is here tonight. Linda Draper with the Oroville City Council. Eileen Robinson with the Chico Unified School District. Scott Hubers, a council member in the City of Chico-elect. Carl Lori just vacated the building to make sure that our numbers were okay. And Alex Brown, council member-elect, is here as well. Again, my name is Randall Stone. I'm a council member in the City of Chico. And I will pass it to Deborah Lucero, supervisor-elect for District 2.
Thank you all for coming on short notice. It seems like we're getting really good at doing things on short notice, unfortunately, but I really appreciate it. We thought it would be better to have a meeting now before Thanksgiving because there are a lot of people wondering what's going to happen. The rain's coming and they would like to know what is currently happening. So the order of tonight's event is, if you've been watching the CampFire updates, we thought it might be interesting to have a sheltering update. So we're going to start with FEMA, who will give us an update as to what's going on, what they have in mind. I'm going to ask everybody to try to be very rapid in talking, a 3-minute presentation so that we can get through this. Also, we have the state here who will give an update as to what they are doing. And then we have many county officials that will give updates from their perspective. We have public health here, behavioral health, and folks who are going to be sitting on a housing task force. So after that, then we would like to open it up to our stakeholders, people who are currently sheltering, people who have been actively involved in that, so that we can get your report out, whether that's Chico State or one of the shelters, if you're represented here. I know I was talking to Steve Laird earlier, who the Elks Lodge Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday housed 200 people just like that. And so we want to hear those stories, and we want to understand from your perspective, what do we need going forward? And then we're going to break out into 5 groups, and we are going to brainstorm quickly on 5 different issues. That's now, sheltering now, midterm, long-term, and then we are also going to talk about funding and wraparound services that are needed. So there's 5 different topics, self-selected. We're going to do this rapidly. We're all professionals. We can do this. And then that's the basically the paper that we're going to start with, that we're going to hand over to Kathy Grams. I want to introduce Kathy Grams because she is going to be the lead on the housing task force for the county. So if you want to stand up just so everybody knows who you are, and she is going to take the lead and do meetings following this meeting, hopefully so that we keep everybody apprised of what's going on as the county moves forward in this endeavor. Hopefully you all got a card when you got in. Does everybody have a card, either white or blue? Okay. That card is to write down your 2 best ideas, for our county as we move forward with this disaster. Also, if you have observed something that needs to be addressed, i.e. you were at a shelter, or you're working in a shelter, you have a lack of food, or there's a lack of volunteers, or you see a cog in the wheel, please write that down, because we want to pass this information along so that we can learn from what is happening right now and make it better. Okay? All right, so I would like to first call up Kevin Haynes with FEMA, and he's going to give us an update on what FEMA is doing and where it's going. Thank you. Did I butcher your last name?
That's okay.
Okay,
Well, good evening. Can y'all hear me without this?
Yes.
Yeah. You're good. Yep. So good evening. My name is Kevin Hannes, and yes. Oh, she's looking for a car. Okay. I'm the Deputy Federal Coordinating Officer for this event, and specifically I'm a senior federal official here in Butte County to assist the state of California and Cal OES in supporting you, Butte County, is it Concal? Yes. And Magalia and Paradise and the other little communities in the impacted area. Right now, you know, we have our Disaster Recovery Center open at the old Sears there at Chico Mall. Business has been brisk, about 1,500 people a day. We do have some repeat customers, which is good, but people are starting to get the services. We have a little over 13,000 households registered with us. A little over $3.6 million is in survivors' hands in their accounts here in just Butte County. And so when I talk numbers, they'll always just be for Butte County and the impacted area here. To be honest with you, I'm not worried about Ventura and LA County. I hope you all don't mind about that. Right? So the process is starting to work. We're talking to a lot of people that have insurance, which is great because that's the first line of defense in our delivery of services. And so, but what I want to make sure that everybody knows is when you register with us and you tell us you have insurance, you are going to get an immediate, within days, sometimes quicker, an ineligibility determination. You are not denied. You're just ineligible because we cannot duplicate insurance with federal funds. And so we need to, as soon as you get your insurance documentation back, they think this is the estimate of what you're going to, they're able to determine that your home was destroyed or severely damaged or not accessible, and here's the benefits or the payout that we're estimating. We need that information back to FEMA. You can do that by uploading it, faxing it, or coming to the Disaster Recovery Center and providing us that paperwork. It's at that point we can determine whether you're uninsured, underinsured, what your ALE was, the amount there, and then we can really walk through those services that you'll be eligible for now that we have that documentation. The other reason that you may get an ineligible letter is because two people at the same address registered independently. And now I have a duplicate registration, and we've got to spend some time working through that to understand, was that two renters on the same lease? How do we resolve that? But our team at the DRC, at the Disaster Recovery Center, can work with you on that. So when you get those ineligible letters, please read past the first line. It says you have been found ineligible. Further down in the fine print, it tells you why. And it's usually something very easy to resolve. Bring that letter to us. We'll walk you through it, and we'll make. If you're eligible for assistance, you're going to get assistance. And my team there at the Disaster Recovery Center is poised and trained and ready to help you walk you through that to make sure that everybody maximizes their eligibility. So that's what's going on right now. In addition, we have focused what we call our Transitional Shelter Assistance Program, now referred to as the hotel program. Right now we are concentrating on those that are living in congregate shelters, one of the Red Cross shelters, or one of the other shelters that are operating within inside the county, or sometimes outside the county that are holding survivors from this event. We're concentrating on them to move them to hotels as quickly as possible. You will receive a call, a robocall from FEMA explaining that you have been found eligible for our Transitional Shelter Assistance Program. You'll be directed to a website to go find hotels that are participating throughout the state of California. There's about 130 hotels between Redding and Sacramento that are participating in the program. Now they don't have a lot of availability, but you're able to call those hotels, register with them, go in, and then FEMA is picking up the tab for that period. Right now it's for 30 days. I think it will be extended, but right now it's approved for 30 days. We'll work with the state of California. If there's still a need to continue that, then we will. So that's getting people out of congregate shelters or those that are deciding to live outside. The other thing that is important to do right now is really start thinking about how you're going to be active in your recovery and take that personal responsibility and be an active part. You're doing that tonight by coming here and saying, here are some ideas of how we can solve housing problems. Let me manage your expectations. Housing is complex. Not everyone who suffered damage in this event will qualify for our housing program. Everybody who suffered, who's uninsured or underinsured, can receive rental assistance, but there's thresholds you have to make to receive the direct housing. A lot of y'all know, the trailers, the RVs, manufactured housing units. Not everybody will qualify for those. Usually just a small percentage. So let me give you an example. Hurricane Harvey, where I was the federal coordinating officer, we had 370,000 households register with us that were found eligible for FEMA assistance, out of about 500,000 that actually registered with us. Of those 370,000, 45,000 met the threshold to be eligible for direct housing. Out of that 45,000, 6,000 participated in the program. And that was about average what we see from disaster to disaster, size and scope. So I'm not saying that's what your percentage is going to be. This is a little bit different situation than many disasters, because we can't go back in and help you fix and rebuild your home because it's just not there. And so I think we'll have a higher percentage, but I just wanted to manage expectations. That we have to be creative. We're empowered to use all our authorities to find solutions for it. Tonight's important mission that I would give to y'all is we know at the short term, we got congregate shelter that we've got to wrestle with and start reducing that, get people into some type of short-term, intermediate, safe, habitable, and secure housing, whether that's a hotel or an apartment. Then we have to look at what is that housing solution going to be for the next 6 to 9 months, or maybe the next 6 months to 2 years. Because even if I could tell you right now today, you qualified for a travel trailer or a manufactured housing unit, and we could put it on your lot up in Paradise or one of the other communities, I can't put it there right now. We've got to get the household hazardous waste taken care of. We've got to get the debris removed. We've got to get the sites built. We've got to make sure that the communities have essential services to support you while you're living up there. Those all things have to come back before we can even think about putting housing units into there and start the rebuilding process. So this is going to be complex, but I want to manage your expectations. I want to be upfront and transparent with you, is that you're not going to see trailers running down the road tomorrow. You're probably not going to see trailers running down the road for several weeks or maybe a month. We have gone out and looked for every RV park within a 75-mile radius. Y'all bought them up. Which is great, because you're finding your own solutions. And we want to help with that through our rental assistance and through other programs that we have. So, let me, again, manage your expectations. Tonight, the best thing y'all can come out of here is, what do we want to have as some of our structures? What are those big strategic objectives that we, as a community, want to achieve? We want to have our kids all in the same schools. And we need to have schools that were within 25 miles of where we think people are going to live. As we go back to rebuild, we want this type of construction or this type of housing or this type of development with inside Paradise or Concau or Medallion. These are big decisions, but right now, please, I know it's stressful. I know you're hurting. I know that you're scared. But we need you to take a pragmatic look. To understand, we have a lot of hard decisions that this community is going to have to make when it comes to housing. Not only for the initial short term, the interim, the midterm, and then the final long-term building that that community is going to do to recover. Now the good news, after I made you all depressed, is that we're not going anywhere. I've got a housing expert here. The Cal OES has their housing expert here. Tony Raines, my guy, has worked for me for about 8 years. He did housing for me in Texas. He's done housing for me after Hurricane Sandy. He has done housing in Puerto Rico. He has been to the most challenging environments to build a housing program back. That's why we brought him here to work with us here. So we're bringing the best of the best, and we're not going anywhere. You have our commitment that we will be here. A few faces will change, but the commitment of the agency, the commitment of FEMA Region 9 is to be here with you until this community is fully recovered. May God bless each and every one. Thank you.
All right, if we could have OES, I'm not sure who's reporting on State Government. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Lamoureux. I'm the Deputy Director for the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and I've been assigned as the Senior State Official in charge of the state's recovery operation here in Butte County. Kevin and I are partners attached at the hip. You know, our job has been to mobilize the federal government and a number of other state agencies into your community to help you get back on your feet. Kevin did a great job of explaining housing. You know, that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And you probably wanted to come here and leave here with some more concrete answers, and you're not going to get that. But what we are going to be able to do is hopefully help to inform you of how the process works. There's a lot of different tools in our toolbox when it comes to housing. And each one of you, your situation is going to be a little unique. You may not be eligible for housing because you've got a family member or some other loved one who's giving you a property or giving you space in their home. And so that's going to mean that you're not eligible. Okay, that is a temporary solution. Probably not an ideal solution. As we go into the holidays, things are going to change. There'll be an argument, dinner table or something. It happens, and that solution that you had that you thought was locked in is probably not going to be there. You're going to come back into the program and you can be reevaluated. Okay, so your situation is going to change, and obviously the change on the recovery front is going to change. You may have insurance that may be able to help you with your temporary solution, in which case you're not going to be eligible for the FEMA program. So a lot of different things to consider. So when we talk about folks not being eligible, those are some of the reasons why. Okay, but our job is to look at what can we do. So we're going to be meeting with your local officials to determine it. You know, if we have to set up a location where we do a number of different RVs or mobile housing units, where can we do that? How can we do that? And your local leaders at both the city and the county levels have already been doing a phenomenal job of getting us potential locations. FEMA's teams are evaluating those locations to determine if they're suitable. There may be some ideas that come out of this meeting tonight that we can put into the mix as well. One of the things that we're taking a leadership role in at the state is the debris operation. Some of you may have the potential of having an RV or some other solution on your property. Right now, that's going to be tough to do in a lot of cases because we don't have anywhere on your property. In most cases, some of you may be out in the unincorporated areas where there's more room, but in a lot of the parcels that I'm seeing in Paradise, we don't have room right now to put a housing solution on the property and still be able to clean the property at the same time. So where those solutions exist, we'll look at that. We'll look at that in terms of how we prioritize the cleanup. But we need to start that cleanup. We're beginning that process next week with some of our initial household hazardous waste removals happening throughout the community, getting rid of the obvious hazardous materials, not doing the full cleanup. That's our first phase. That's the first step toward doing the full debris removal. And then we're going to have meetings like this to walk you through what we call our private property debris removal program looks like. And that's a conversation we're going to have with you for a long period of time so that you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you want to give us permission to clean your property or you want to take care of it yourself. So there's going to be more to come probably in the coming days on that because we need to get you all up to speed on what that's going to look like so that you can make a decision to hopefully grant us access to come in and clean your property. So there's a lot of different moving parts and pieces. But our job at Cal OES, we don't have a program necessarily like FEMA's got, but our job is to identify what are the programs you need, mobilize those resources, and then hold those state and federal agencies accountable to ensure that they're delivering the services that you're going to need to get yourself back on your feet. So it's an honor to be here tonight. I've got a lot of my staff with me tonight as well that worked on this program last year in the North Bay and also up in this community when we had devastating fires in October of last year, and then later on down in Ventura County with the Thomas Fire. So we bring a lot of experience to the table and understand what FEMA's going to need. We understand the questions we need to ask of you and your local leaders to get to the right solution as quickly as possible, and excited to see what comes out of tonight's meeting. So thank you.
All right, and so we're going to go from there to county reports. So let's go in order here. Is that
I think it
Shelby?
makes more sense for Shelby.
Okay, Shelby Boston.
My name is Shelby Boston. I'm the Director of Employment and Social Services here in the county. During disasters, my department is responsible by law to assist with care and shelter of those who are impacted by whatever type of disaster we have. For the last 12 days, myself and my team have been in the Emergency Operations Center responsible for opening up and collaborating with the American Red Cross to serve the sheltering needs of those who have been evacuated from this disaster. Tonight, I can report out that we have 946 individuals in our official shelters, which are the shelters we at the county consider to be called official. They're managed by the Red Cross with county support. So we have capacity of 1,820 in the shelters that we currently are operating, and right now 946 officially registered and being counted. In the unofficial shelters, we have a capacity of 825 with a total of 273 individuals who are choosing to shelter there instead of in an official shelter. In addition to the short-term sheltering that we're doing, we're also working in collaboration with our partners at OES, Department of Social Services at the state level, and the American Red Cross to make sure that all the needs of the individuals who are there in any of our official shelters are being met. This is just one phase of this disaster. There's other phases that we're obviously starting already, such as the disaster recovery center, which again we collaborate with our partners at FEMA, OES, and all of our county partners as well as the state. We've done what we call LACs or LACs in the past, but this is a much larger scale, so we've chosen to go with the disaster recovery terminology, disaster recovery center, and that means that it's a larger scale. So we have those federal resources with us as well. The next part of our incident that we're having to start to participate in, which is something we've not had to do in Butte County ever before, is the mass casualty component of this incident. So there'll be more information coming out in the very near future about what we'll be doing as a county in collaboration with our state and federal partners to meet the needs of the families who've been impacted by the loss of their loved one. So that's a whole other part of this disaster that we'll be working on. I expect we'll have more details about that early next week. We have been, part of this incident has been the medical side of the care and the needs of those who have sheltered. Unfortunately, the weather's changing and we have viruses out in our community, and I'm going to let Dr. Miller speak to that.
Good evening. My name is Andy Miller. I'm the Public Health Officer for Butte County, so that's the doctor for the county. And our department and I personally have different responsibilities in a situation like this. So I personally have administrative responsibilities to request and approve medical resources that get brought into our community. Our department is responsible for supporting all the shelters that Shelby was just talking about with medical services. I could talk for a long time about what that means, but that's not directly related to housing, so you probably are concerned, as many people have been, about norovirus, of the hundreds of people that Shelby just described in our shelters. We have 36 people presently in isolation. Almost all of those people are no longer symptomatic. We hold them in isolation until they've been asymptomatic for 24 hours before they're released, and therefore not thought to be infectious. Those numbers are significantly better than they were a few days ago. And so the hope is that we are getting ahead of that. You should know that norovirus is not unique to shelters. Norovirus travels through our community every year. We were aware of norovirus in our community before the fire. The problem is in congregate living, viruses like that can transmit very easily. Sharing bathroom facilities, mass feeding, those are all great challenges. And so through a lot of work by the Red Cross, by our staff and by folks at the state, I think we're starting to see a great improvement there. But I will kind of counter that optimism with the fact that the influenza season is now. And if our influenza season this year is like last, we have great challenges. We have congregate living, which is a great place for that to spread. And we have hospitals that could barely deal with influenza last year that are already full because of the loss of a hospital in our community. So I'm going to take advantage of being in front of you to beg you to get the word out. There are many people that don't believe in flu vaccines. I'm going to tell you that the same science that supports fires like this being caused in part by a changing climate is the same science that tells us unequivocally that flu vaccines save people's lives. And I know that that's not a message many people agree with, but it's true. And I will be getting out and begging people. And I'm telling you this because we brought influenza vaccine into all of our shelters over the last few days, and we've been disappointed in the uptake. So the messaging will be, please, please get a flu vaccine. The only other thing I should mention is that there was a declaration of a local health emergency done, I believe, on Friday or Saturday, the day after or the next day. That has direct relevance to housing because that allows for the state Cal OES to then apply for federal funding if they so desire, or to use their own funding to help with cleanup for these sites. And so these sites are thought to be a public health risk until clean, and something this scale, and when rains come, is definitely a public health risk. And so that declaration was made and has relevance to the housing. So that's probably all I need to say about that's relevant to housing tonight. Okay.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hello, my name is Dorian Kittrell, and I'm the Director for Behavioral Health. I want to let you know that our services in Paradise, my department had significant mental health services there. We did lose our adult clinic. It was lost to the fire, and our youth clinic is standing. So that is good news. We also had significant personnel in Paradise. Currently, we are a little over 60 personnel who've lost their homes. All of their operations for the Department of Behavioral Health are working. Our crisis services, inpatient services, clinics in Gridley, Chico, and Oroville. Our main task right now, beyond the external work that we're doing with agencies to get word out on how to reduce the impacts of a traumatic event, is our internal operations in finding all of the clients that we serve in the Paradise area. We serve approximately 650 people, 500 adults and 150 youth. So we have a phone team as well as field teams searching the shelters and everywhere we can find, as well as calling all the individuals to get those people back into services into one of our other clinics. We've already found many of them, and we're very pleased about that. We are providing them with emergency medication refills and medication supports and case management. Housing does continue to be a challenge. We're also working closely with our providers, Victor Youth Services, Youth for Change, and countless others to begin planning on our response for the schools and for the larger community on how to begin to look at the long-term recovery of our community. I think that's all I've got right now.
Do we want to get a report also from schools? I know people are in county schools.
My name is Kevin Bolton, I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services for Chico Unified School District. You may or may not know, the County Superintendent of Schools closed schools across Butte County through the 26th originally, but has extended that through December 3rd due to air quality. We are currently working on cleaning up our classrooms and being prepared to take in students. Our focus is on kids. Our facilities are being prepared to bring in kids. We are running events for students. We're doing counseling training. Our teachers and support staff will come back in on the 27th, and they will start receiving training on trauma and on how to basically take care of these kids when they walk through the door. Our facilities are being used in different capacities to help with this event. Marsh Junior High School is housing National Guard, coroners, and police from outside the area. And Bidwell Junior High School is an evac center, Red Cross Center. Our high schools have been used substantially for student reunification for Paradise Unified School District students, along with Chico Unified School District, getting an opportunity to be with each other and just have time to be kids. So our elementary schools are running lots of programs individually with their parents as well. And again, we are really attempting at this point to get prepared because we want to provide as much normalcy as possible for our students in our community. We want them back in the classroom, and we're getting prepared to be open on December 5th.
Okay, are we missing anybody out there that, from Bennett, State, County? Sure. Yes.
I apologize, I'd be remiss in letting you know. We have brought packets here for the general community, particularly related to youth and their reactions to trauma. I really urge all of you to take one, photocopy them, get them out to anyone you know. It really is a great primer for how parents can work with their kids and take care of them during this time.
It's Marie. Hi, Marie. You're not going to give us an update from the city of Chico.
Hello, everybody. So right now, the city of Chico is looking at ordinance, an emergency ordinance, to be able to accommodate alternative housing situations. It's all kind of fluid right now, but we're working on that. We'll bring that forward. We are, as I believe the FEMA gentleman said, that we are working with FEMA and Cal OES to locate sites for potential location of units. That's pretty much it. We have Brendan, sorry, I don't know how to do this. I speak in front of people all the time. I know, weird. So Brendan Beeg is on the housing task force as well, the county housing task force. So I'm kind of supporting him, and he's kind of the main guy right now. But that's pretty much it. There are things in motion. We are working behind the scenes, and you know, this is all came very quickly, of course, and so we are working on it right now. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. So what I'd like to transition to, and I know that the county staff has been working long hours, so before we let them out of the room, are there any really dire questions out there that someone needs answered of the county staff? Because they do need to leave. They've been putting in tremendously long.
Yes, there may be a central website we can go to and get all the information, the updates, because things are obviously moving fast.
Sheldon, you want to go? Casey? Okay, Casey Hatcher is going to talk about the website.
Right now, we are hosting at buttecounty.net information particularly related to the response to the incident, but we'll be putting up a website, buttecountyrecovers.org. It's not up yet, so don't go there and see the information. Paradise has also put up a site, paradiserecovers.org. So buttecountyrecovers.org and paradiserecovers.org will both post information about all of the pieces of the recovery effort, and housing will be one of those elements.
What opportunities expected to get?
What about 211?
What's the ETA?
Shortly. We hope to have it up before the beginning of this week.
Wow.
That doesn't mean it'll be fully populated with information, but we're working on it.
Okay, so I thought what we could do next is I'd like to, yes, ma'am.
Are any of the environmental concerns being addressed so that we don't have so many mudslides coming up in the future?
Okay, we're going to let Cal OES take care of that. There was a press release that went out today on that topic.
I'm sorry, I haven't seen the press release, so hopefully I'm not duplicating too much, but there's been an effort over the last several days. We've got a watershed task force stood up at the State Operations Center in Sacramento. It's closely coordinating with town officials and county officials to identify those areas where we need to take some immediate actions over the next couple days to put wattles down, put other measures down. And so there's been active involvement in identifying where those significant areas are with your county and town personnel, and then mobilizing to get resources and personnel to address those areas. So we're trying to do everything we can. We're paying close attention to the weather forecasts. The weather forecasts we're getting, there's concern, but fortunately it's not as significant a concern as we thought it might be a day or so ago, but we'll continue to take a close look at that and work in close coordination with your local government officials to help support whatever actions we need to take in that regard.
And there was a press release that went out today talking about environmental concerns. And I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it's, where do we place those press releases? BCAC.net. So if you want more information, there is a pretty long, extensive release about that today. Okay? Yes?
Hi, Deborah. I'm currently involved in the recovery center that's going out to Toys R Us, and having set that up. And we're going to be scrambling to get all that product that's out in the parking lot inside so it doesn't turn into a big pile of mush. But is there any, I'm more concerned about the Walmart encampment. Is there anything that can be done? I know those folks, they're dug in there and they're going to do the best they can and are resistant to moving. But is there anything we can open up to get those people inside for this storm that's coming?
I know that's a city issue, so I'm going to hand this over to Randy.
It's actually even less than that. The city of Chico has been working to place those evacuees from the Walmart center into existing supported shelter services. That has largely taken place. We have a group there that doesn't want to leave until they're told to leave. The Walmart parking lot is now being governed by the Walmart and their property as well, and they are escorting those people out and getting them to services. So we've worked with Walmart and all of the law enforcement officials to address that. At this stage, it's now a dwindling Walmart issue. So we don't see the camps that we did before. There are still people camping with tents in that field.
So the folks that are there, are they resistant to leaving?
Yes, until they're ordered to leave, they're not moving. Yeah.
So I imagine there were a lot of homeless people in Paradise that some of them might have made it out. If they're in Chico, are there services for them? And maybe those are some of the people at Walmart. Maybe they don't think they qualify for FEMA or anything, but yet they got no place to go.
FEMA was on site there, so everybody's been discussed or worked with. I don't know, again, you can lead somebody to the support services.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Are they eligible? Will they get services from the agency?
They absolutely could be diverted or sent to another shelter where that would be answered as well. I'm literally talking to people. You do understand that FEMA's here and available, yes. And you are likely eligible considering you were coming up with Paradise Fire. Yes, I'm not moving here until I'm ordered to be moved here. She's got an insurance check coming that's coming in about a month and a half. And so what she wants to do, she feels most comfortable in that specific spot, and she wouldn't leave. Even though the services were available, everything was available, the roof over your head was available, there's a condition where people would like to remain there. That's just not something that Walmart or the city chief can support. So as long as there are spaces available, roofs over their heads, we can get them placed. We're willing to do that, but we can't force them to be in that condition. At this stage, Walmart is going to have to clear that parking lot if there's no, excuse me, that parking lot. vacant lot next door. Yes.
But in the case of that woman, there's a check coming. What if there's no check coming and the Red Cross shelters are going to close?
I don't know that the Red Cross shelters are going to close, and I can't speak to what the shelter condition is moving forward. My organization, Safe Space Winter Shelter, of which I'm a member of the board, is working to facilitate the same shelter conditions for some time. So I don't know that that's the case. I don't know the Red Cross is planning. Okay,
So I can speak to, Red Cross isn't going to close all the shelters at once. It's not the plan. We have a consolidation plan that we've been developing in conjunction with the Red Cross. It's very strategic. We're looking at, we've been pre-planning and trying to encourage folks from both the Walmart parking lot, side vacant lot, as well as anywhere else that folks are choosing to be outside instead of taking advantage of those facilities that we have that have food and medical care and are warm. We can't force anyone, but we do have a strategy to help consolidate, to enhance the service delivery that we can provide at those larger facilities. We don't want anyone to stay outside. We want people to seek shelter. And where we have the vacancies, we, in our estimations, to meet the needs of those that are outside.
Bill? Are we also talking to people with animals? Is that why they're being hesitant?
That's a great question. Repeat the question. The question was about animals. So we recognize that early on, that we have a lot of folks who are connected to their animals, and they don't want to leave their animals. So one of the things that we worked very quickly on was getting an additional small animal shelter set up at the Gridley Fairgrounds, specifically to help those folks that want to have their animals with them. And so that's in place, and we're ready. If folks want to come, they can come with their animal to that Red Cross shelter in Gridley. I know Gridley is a far away, and we recognize that. And that's why we've set up shuttles for folks to be able to get in and out of town. So we have shuttles going from Gridley, from actually all of our shelters into Chico for the DRC, and we'll have shuttle service to the places where there are the donations and such being distributed.
And it's a regular shuttle?
It's a beeline bus.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, guys. Okay. So we're going to try to put the questions right now, just if we want to get through this, because we've got a lot of providers here. So I would like to start, could I see the number of people in this audience who are actually sheltering people at their facility right now? Anybody?
Facility or home?
Facility. And we're going to say goodbye to the county folks. Thank you for everything. Okay, so do we have anybody here currently sheltering any evacuees in numbers, 10 or more? Okay. Then Dan, could you come up and talk about Chico State and what's happening with Chico State students and some of the ideas that you expressed at a couple of other meetings?
So we've identified about 500 students who have zip codes in the affected area, about 200 faculty and staff, and so we talk students first. We've been working with property owners who have a focus on student-oriented properties, and they are working to consolidate some of their housing situations, putting roommates together, creating more vacancies. We have less than 100 units that are available. It's interesting because about a week ago we had an abundance of student-oriented properties, and that is no longer the case. But we are working with them closely, and they are trying to consolidate. We have developed a website for faculty and staff so that faculty can offer housing and faculty can receive housing. And we keep that within the faculty and staff because we are a state institution. We recognize that there's some risks as an institution sponsoring a site that says, hey, come live with us, and find out that it's the wrong person in the wrong situation. So we felt like we would be mitigating the risk by keeping it in the Chico State family, and certainly the more we house Chico State faculty and staff with each other, the less impact the community will be experiencing from those people looking for housing elsewhere. In addition, we've identified 4 lots that are controlled by the university, owned by the university, or controlled by the university or the foundation, that could potentially be used as a more medium-term housing solution if we were able to get trailers, RVs on those sites. And so we are certainly open to the discussions that FEMA has, and we're listening closely to what opportunities we have there to move some folks that are going to live short-term with a fellow faculty member to a more medium-term solution, like a trailer on a site such as College Park or the site at the University Farm or the other places we've identified. Not those sites are necessarily ready at this moment, but we could get them ready in fairly short order if we knew that we had some temporary housing. I think that is it in a nutshell.
Okay, question.
So would those lots then be for, again, for faculty and staff, or would it be open to the public?
The question was, would they be for faculty and staff or open to the public? Ideally and initially, because we know that we have over 200 faculty and staff, and we don't have enough lots for more than 200 units, it would be ideally faculty and staff housing. But again, we feel like if we can address those people won't be looking for other resources within the community. Yes?
What about New College? A lot of students from out
I
there.
can't speak to that.
I don't think we have somebody from Butte College here, am I right? I will find out about that though, that's a great question, and get back to you when I report out to the group. We're going to send out a report with numbers and ideas and all that kind of thing.
They had 67 homeless students before the fire.
67 homeless before the fire. So if I'm understanding you right, Dan, we have 500 students.
Well, 500 students with a zip code. Now that might mean parents of the students, so they may not be living in Paradise right now, they may be living in Chico. Certainly they're impacted, but not directly or not necessarily homeless at this point because they might have already resided in Chico.
So we're not really sure about
We're
that
not sure
number
the
yet.
exact count yet for students who are displaced in the evacuee.
But we have 200 faculty and staff, that is a solid number.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Does anybody else have numbers like that they want to report for shelter situations or concepts?
Just one number that I heard from Shore, which was the homeless outreach in Paradise, that they had 178 people that they were actively serving.
Shore.
Unsheltered.
We haven't. We are serving a handful of folks that have come to us, but originally all phone calls that were coming in and inquiries we were diverting because we felt that their services at the evacuation center was more appropriate than at our shelter. And so we do have a few people, but not anything significant.
Likewise, at the Jesus Center, we diverted. We actually went and sought, we had space in the women's shelter. We sought elderly women who were mobile to come up, but they were finding services in the evac centers, and so they were comfortable getting services there. We diverted 2 small family units into our transitional houses, and we're able to accommodate them there, but again, no large numbers yet.
What about anybody servicing the elderly population? Anybody in here? Because that's another really displaced group of people in all the shelters that I visited.
can speak to that. I have regular contact with Joe Cobery, who runs Passages. This is part of his mandate in his funding. I know that the day of the fire, he and his staff reached out immediately. By 8:30 in the morning, they've contacted all of their shut-in clients that they serve food to. They are not sure at this point whether they all made it out. Most are immobile and have no access out.
Just a note on Goodwill, in Yuba City, there's a shelter at 1400 Bridge Street. I've been in contact with the CEO, Richard Abuski, I believe, and they can house about 200 more people. The last estimate I got was only maybe 10 or 12 there. It's a really nice facility.
Okay, could you repeat that address and the number of people? I just want to make sure we got that.
Sure. It's 1400 Bridge Street. It's near the Rayleigh shopping area, close to the 99 across the freeway from the mall, 1400 Bridge Street in Yuba City. They can house close to 200 more people. They can house pets, families, and folks can even sleep in tents inside if they like.
That sounds pretty cool. Okay. Something? Yes.
I'm working with a group of people at the Toys R Us, the old store. It's being used now for resources and eventually for helping people at a help desk, counseling, and so on. There was some talk, the building is being rented or leased by the county. We've been talking with Grant Hunsicker, General Services Director. But right now we have a lot of supplies. The parking lot is full. We're trying to get all the stuff that's on the parking lot into the building, clothes, toiletries, food, camping equipment, just everything. More is coming in all the time. People want to give, and it's hard to say no and go away. But so there was some talk about possibly using this facility for housing, but so far the county has said no, they do not want to do that. But that's still a possibility. If all worst comes to worst, we might be able to do that. And YWAM, Youth with a Mission, is Dennis McCord is one of the people, and Ken Donnell.
Can I clarify something before we talk about that?
Yeah.
The gentleman who talked with, from FEMA about the trailers that they brought in for Katrina, and he said something about, 45,000 were approved, but only 6,000 were. Is that because the rest of them didn't want or take the housing, or you only had 6,000 trailers to supply?
No, sir. The way the program works is of those people who are eligible, some people choose other forms of their own housing. It was 6,000 who said, yes, I will participate in this program, and then they were put in.
But you had 40, how easy?
The 45,000 was the number of those who were eligible to participate.
But could you have actually supplied trailers for them?
Yes, sir. I'll buy them off the lot if I have to.
Just a quick question. Do you know why the county has not approved Toys R Us to be opened as a shelter? It would seem closer than driving down to New City to street.
I don't know the answer to that. I've been asking that question myself, but I do think that part of it has to do with the funding structure from FEMA and from the state, so I'm not sure on that whole, and I don't even know, I don't know. So, but I have asked the same question, so I'm waiting for a good response on that.
Who's signing the lease for that structure?
The county.
The county.
The county did sign the lease on that.
So then they're determining what's happening.
They are determining what's happening with that building.
A word on that. The city of Chico is not in the driver's seat with regards to this emergency. And many of you may not know, in the event of an emergency, this is probably a specious detail, but the city manager becomes the authoritarian control of the city of Chico during an emergency. The political figures are just policy folks. So there is a structure and an organization for emergency response, and part of it is waiting our turn. As much as it's terrible to be sitting on our hands, we've got to wait for that baton, that funding process to pass.
And I'm just learning this stuff. So,
There's a comment.
yes.
Well, this isn't a question. I think you can all hear me. But we have a, I guess you would call it a little thing for veterans that are passing through between the rubble to a house for storage. But we're having a problem getting a garbage container big enough to put there. We had an offer from Ecology to put a container at the property. When they found out it was in the city of Chico, they said, sorry, Waste Management has that contract. We have to get a waiver from the city of Chico. And as of yet, we have not been able to do that. I'm just saying, I don't know if these other shelters are having that problem with garbage and stuff, but maybe that might be something that the city council or
send me an email about connecting with Waste Management, because that should just be
because
it's
like
a
I
kink
said,
in the chain that is not.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I can discuss in this maybe break up.
Before we break up, anyone else still wants to
But I was just thinking, just to get the creative juices flowing, y'all have your blue card, right? Has there been an idea that you've been dying to tell somebody, or you're thinking off the charts here? This is to get the ideas going, because I would love to see you write that idea down and articulate that thought in writing before we break up into our groups. So I think we're going to have our what's happening right now in shelters. People who are concerned say about the Toys R Us, Walmart, the Red Cross. It would be nice if, I don't know if the Red Cross is still here.
Oh, see that.
Okay, over there, okay, over in the corner. Midterm, right here. Long term, over in that corner. Funding, right over here. Okay, and then wraparound services, which we know people are going to need. They don't just need shelter. Anybody interested? So we're hoping that you're going to self-choose these things. And please, please, we're just going to brainstorm for about maybe 20 minutes. It's going to be fast. Let people talk. But first, write down your ideas on your cards so that you can come into the circle with that. And there'll be someone at each. I would love if the elected officials would each be at one of the, to help facilitate the conversations. If everybody just wants to go and grab one of the boards, just so that you're there and can help mediate. Does that sound good for everybody? Anything I'm not thinking of? I'm sorry. So we're just going to go around the room. So what's happening now? Medium, long range. Funding, wraparound services. Deborah, you good if you move around at different groups? Yes.
I was going to see if we could define what short and long is. That a time or is that
Guys, before we move, some questions. People want to know what short term means.
So we're on the same page.
Okay, short term. In my mind, this is the next 30 to 90 days. 30 to 90 days is short term. Okay? Medium term would probably be 9 months to 2 years, or 9 months to 18 months, and then beyond. Okay? All right, does that help? Any other questions like that? All right, you guys, please write down and then go and self-choose. We're gonna do this 1 minute, and then we're out of here. We're gonna put that report out, and then we're out.
Oh, okay. Did you get that one? Should we get the
handwriting?
We got an artiste right. Actually, I am. I thought I saw you at one of the shows. But that looks good.
You guys, we're gonna start over here with what's happening right now. Who's gonna talk about this one? This is sheltering now.
Short term, houseboats. Getting a list of people looking, although there's one with NVPOA right now, who I think they're doing a pretty good job, but needs to get out there further. Firemen's tents, someone mentioned that the tents the firemen's are staying in are pretty phenomenal. They're outfitters, rent, lease, current, vacant parking lots. I think our biggest problem in all of these is actually finding those spaces to put things. Yurts, that goes with that. The Napa Fire Recovery Center was a service, not so much a place or a solution, but they help subsidize rent, and helped to get funding, and they helped, and I can't read my own writing, incorporate current homeless needs into current solutions being searched for, so that I have that on the back page, so that instead of just throwing up a bunch of stuff, making it viable for continued ongoing use. Search out of the area to Tama, Glen, Calusa, et cetera, someone mentioned the Correct building, the Fleetwood building, and we talked about all that space out at the airport. Before Eaton, the Shasta RVs, I forget, I didn't write the last word down, there's a big parking lot out there or building. Safe space shelters. This gentleman, I gave a card to Deborah, thank you, is an organization. They've been doing winter shelters for years, and they said it's all volunteer, but with a little money they could expand that.
They need a building.
Buildings.
They need a building for that.
Money in buildings, right. More attention needs to be paid to waste services, big box stores for housing, substantial portable restrooms. Again, this goes to the, instead of throwing up a bunch of stuff, making it substantial. Pay current home sponsors to continue sheltering. Okay, like a lot of people, I don't need money, but I have in-laws staying with me, which is wonderful, and I would not do it any differently. But there's a lot of people who, instead of renting out their houses and asking these people who have no money or homes to live there, help them, fund some of those places. Updating current shelters funding to support the influx, allow tents, tiny houses, RV trailers, suspend zoning requirements temporarily.
Awesome. Midterm, the 9 to 12 months. An idea to convert the new Holiday Inn to small living quarters. Suspend fees for auxiliary dwelling units. Allow cottages in yards and driveways for midterm. And when we say the word cottages, there's lots of alternatives. They could be yurts, RVs. It could be a cottage that is on wheels now, but could be taken to a permanent home site while a property is being developed. Identify government-owned land for available cottages. Incorporate the needs of existing homeless in these solutions. Incorporate sanitation needs. Portable cottages that could move on site. Tiny house village. Auxiliary dwelling units. Parks. RV and travel trailer parks. Transportation needs and pop-up amenities need to be included if the community is isolated. Create timelines and set priorities so that the community is informed of the goals. Invest in consultants that can help guide our process, housing consultants and planning consultants. Developmental impact fees relaxed for multiple family dwelling units. Include communities and members and electeds in decision-making. Maintain community character. Be mindful of what's next after properties aren't used for the midterm. Don't impact facilities for regular or normal use. For example, the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds for our Memorial Day Fair and all the other community events that those facilities support. Will there be hotels for Chico State graduation weekend? Include workforce housing. It's a big deal. Include workforce housing developers in plans so that they can be used for our existing homeless or low-income residents after it's used for short-term housing. Make sure that they're ADA compliant. Find facilities for our older adult housing. Support existing homeless service agencies, short-term housing, rooms for rent, kind of a matching service. Maybe that should have been on short-term. And remember aesthetics as we move through this.
All right, Chico, long-term planning.
So initially we talked about some of the concerns with long-term housing, environmental impact, watershed quality, overall long-term planning for fire and flood, sewer, that's Paradise. Moderate low-income housing solutions in Chico. We want to we suggest that we focus on accessory dwelling units with suspension of fees temporarily, loans for ADUs, repackaged plans to make it really simple for people to create those on their properties, allowing non-owner occupied ADUs, a centralized permitting services, and then, of course, mini houses is a solution as well. A sort of coordinated filtering system for people who move up while creating availability. In other words, as people move out of low-income housing into moderate, then we need to be able to fill those places and have a system of recognizing and seeing where those availabilities are. Short-term subsidies, incentivizing property owners for mixed-use housing, mixed types of housing through fee structures, creating an inventory of what's available on all levels, coordinating providers, and incentivizing them to provide diverse housing, kind of same thing. And then this, I think, is really important for us to keep in the back of our minds. The way we live today in the U.S., where we have 2 people living in a 5,000 square foot home, is not sustainable. We need to start thinking about different types of living situations, whether it's pairing college students with seniors, whether it's multi-generational families living together, those types of things. We need to start, for me personally, coming out of what's just happened in Paradise, thinking about how we step up to take care of our own and take care of each other. This speaks to that, to me. I hope that what we're seeing right now is a catalyst to start thinking about how we can help each other as opposed to how we can live in the biggest house. Anyway, sorry.
Thank you.
Let's see. SROs, and then a funding stream for rebuilding and repairing homes through Habitat for Humanity and CHIP. That, again, we talk about a lot of homes just becoming habitable over time because people can't afford to keep them up and maintain them. So that's an important long-term solution as well.
We're going to go to funding. Whoops, yes. You got a question?
Yeah, just one thing that I haven't seen and I just thought about it. I've got friends who were in the Santa Rosa fire, and they said what happened in Santa Rosa after this is rents started skyrocketing, and many people couldn't even afford to live in that area anymore. So I don't know what area that would go in, but I would hate to see that start happening here. Well, it's certainly not going to make things easier for people to find.
Yeah, we have an emergency ordinance that just got passed in the city of Chico, and it's about ready to be passed in Oregon, we hope, right? That it's on their agenda on...
Correct. It is on their agenda.
So it's a price gouging restrictions, not necessarily what they call rent control, but price gouging restrictions for a period of time, like a year, and then revisit it every 6 months to see how we're doing.
And not just for homes, but for all retail.
Everything.
One more question here, Robert.
Well, I understood that is not for the sale of homes, because we've been trying to buy one, just want to help people, and housing prices are going up dramatically.
Yeah.
The sale of houses is going up dramatically, that has to be addressed as well.
In fact, at the onset of these circumstances, rents go up, home prices go up. We are aware of that, we are looking to thwart that, but that is just a reality with every disaster of this type.
Okay, so let's move to funding.
Okay, so the first thought that we had, Miles, help me fill in here, is it Paradise Fires or Paradise?
Paradise Fire.
Adopt a Family. Okay, so yeah, so it's ParadiseFireAdoptAFamily.com. You can find it online and also Facebook. And basically what this is, it's a way for individuals and families to be connected with very benevolent individuals out in our community and across the United States who want to adopt families and basically provide cash, provide gift cards, provide for a lot of the things that people need right now. So just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that and can share that information. And they are encouraging people to set up their own GoFundMe accounts because then it provides a way for that donor to immediately give them funds. Next funding option we looked at was to look into CDBG recovery, so that's Community Development Block Grant Recovery Funds. Those funds require the Presidential Declaration of a Disaster, which we have. We need to check into, we know that Paradise will be eligible. We need to see if Chico would also be eligible for those funds since Chico is taking in so many evacuees. So the cities, potentially, maybe even Butte County would be able to apply through Housing and Urban Development, and that can pay for the replacement of infrastructure and housing. The North Valley Community Foundation, let's see.
Concentrating on supporting those who are supporting others instead of direct aid.
Right, exactly. And so far, they've raised a little more than $5 million in pledges and receipts, and $300,000 has been put out into the community. And are looking very carefully at what the long-term needs of this community are going to be, so that not all that money is put out and duplicated in some way for short-term needs, really looking at long-term needs. And they've been talking with other community foundations about how they address disasters and getting some really good information from them. Obviously not wanting to duplicate what FEMA will be paying for. And looking, the next point was to look for some organizations that might have funding that support green and environmentally sustainable development as we look at rebuilding. That will be really important potentially. The North Valley Housing Trust, one of the things they would want to look at is a pool of people who have skills in doing this type of development in disaster situations, and having them come in and sort of train our community on how to do this so that when they leave, we have a skilled and knowledgeable set of developers. Also, they've spoken with RCAC, the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, and they're willing to come in and provide some funding and technical assistance to help. And right now, the Housing Trust has $560,000 available to support the development of low-income housing. We talked about making contact with the State Water Resources Control Board, who has grants and loans to provide funding for actual like sewer and water infrastructure. So again, this is more long-term rebuilding that we would be looking for funding. Let's see. The Sierra Health Foundation just announced that they have some grants available for fire recovery, so we need to look into that. And then we said we need generous donations of land.
All right. Yes. Sherry, oh, wait, yeah, go ahead. Are these questions for long-term?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sherry, I know that Paradise is an entitlement for CDBG, so is there an extra layer that can happen on top of the entitlement?
Yes. Yeah, it's specifically disaster recovery funds, and we would be eligible. We know Paradise would be eligible, and we're thinking Chico would be as well.
Is there another question? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that for the Housing Trust, we just found out that we will be eligible to spend our remaining first round of our Housing Trust of the state Housing Trust Grant Program. It's about 2021 that we will be able to apply again for the funds released from Prop 1 passing. So again, that's a couple years off, but in terms of long-term development and funding, that could be a significant pool of funding. It's whatever local dollars or matches we have can essentially be doubled by the states. So that would be a resource in, we estimate, by early 2021.
Okay, so we're going to report out on wraparound services and things that people may need.
So what we're thinking is public safety, personal, public, and social services out there versus the police out there. Mental health care, mood changes, not just for the victims, but for other people experiencing homelessness or family members of those. The victims are all, in grief and PTSD. Check the baseline. So check in on your relatives. Everybody knows what your normal is, and then when you start to fluctuate or anything like that, then have a conversation and make sure you're wrapping around them. Pop-up mental health services and supportive services. 10 teams of 2. My famous thing is advocates, social workers, and transporters that gets people around town and get out to the people. At existing agencies' workforce, so like behavioral health isn't, even if I was to go, if we were to go out and bring 20 people to behavioral health, they're not staffed enough in order to take them in. So we need additional funding, federal funding for behavioral health so that they can take in the people that we're finding out on the street that we're walking around. Training for PTSD, trauma, and grief. These are for all of our workers, our teachers, our people on the street, our, everybody that's involved. Medical mobile, connect with the Shalom Free Clinic and the mobile AMPLA that the Jesus Center is putting together with AMPLA and the Shalom Free Clinic. Managed care, we need greater access. So what's happening with managed care, and it's not just all Medi-Cal, right? So we have to do more than that. Will entities step up on need versus finances? So behavioral health is overtaken with the amount of people who are suffering any form of mental illness, but Enloe has 2 people in there because they only take people who pay. So will these other entities that will they step up and take care of this? Long-term commitment to effective communications to everyone, service providers and consumers. Long-term task force and the silos. Because that's everybody not communicating with one another is really causing more havoc and more doubling the amount of work. And identify already existing assets that we have in our community that are already doing it, that can help in those ways and including them.
All right. We have the opportunity here to create something very unique and be a model for the United States. Chico is very innovative. We have very innovative schools. We put out people out into the world, into the community, and we need to take this opportunity and let it be guided by our community. And yes, there's FEMA and everything, but they need to be our support system. They can't be our drivers. We need to keep this home.
And I think he would totally agree with that statement. And I think yes. So, honestly, I feel the same way. I think that, when you look at a tragedy like this and we're zeroing in, I haven't read the numbers yet tonight, but we've lost 13,000 single-family residences. That's just, single family. We have multiple. We've lost over 600 businesses that are destroyed, completely gone, or damaged, and then that's all those jobs and everything. It's going to take all the creativity we have to overcome this and not really lose control of what we know as Chico and what we know as Lake County. So we need this, and I'm hoping that Kathy's going to have, what I would like to see, and if all of you are in favor of something like this, what I would like to see is regular updates, just like CampFire gives a regular update. I would like to see a regular update on sheltering, on housing, where we are, kind of a report card. Where are we in the community? What's happening? So that we can keep the dialogue open and find out what the needs are before they become too onerous. And we can, okay, great. Yes?
I just wanted to say, I am a resident of Paradise, and I love that we always talk about first responders, but I just wanted to say, we have service organizations like Seroptimus and Rotary and the Elks and all of our nonprofits and service organizations in this community were really the first responders to this disaster. And they are the ones who stepped up and opened their homes and started feeding people and started getting the boots on the ground. And we just need to be really mindful that they're our first line of defense. We can't cut them out when these federal organizations come in, because we've already gone out and met the people who are affected. We know them, we've talked with them, so keep them in the loop, because they're going to be here long after they're gone too. So I a tremendous amount of respect for the organizations in Chico that just stepped up and made this a really, as much of a pleasant situation as you possibly could. Just thank you very much. And
yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you. Let's give everybody.
comment on Miles there. I'd like to get all this stuff compiled up once you get it all together. I'd like to have it put in our local newspapers and put it out to the community and say, this is what 100 people put together one night. You're thousands of people out there. What do you want as well? So expand this thing a little bit. There might be ideas out there we didn't even think about in here. So that would be another thing I would like to suggest.
I don't see Casey here, but we probably can write this up very nicely, and it can get out there. I mean, Facebook and a lot of other ways to get people's input. What are your creative ideas? Because I know right now I'm getting so many every single day. People are writing about this or that, or they saw this in another community, or just, I think I sent all of you who came the idea of the small little units that were in big box stores. Have y'all seen that one? Yeah, I mean, that was just such a clever idea, it's just one idea, and there's so many more out there. So, anybody else have a dying question or something they need to say? Yes.
I may have missed this, but can you talk a little bit more about the housing task force? That's something from the county, and then, just tell us more about how it works, who's on it, what the goal is.
We are working on that as we speak. So we're actually, some of us are meeting tomorrow. And so that's going to be the county. It's going to have representatives from the city, Cal OES, FEMA, and our first meeting is tomorrow. But I think what I envision is we have, as we saw tonight, so many people with ideas to offer, land to offer. So part of the goal of the task force, as I see it, is to really kind of coordinate all that information, the needs, the offers that are coming in, and to make sure that we start to look at these and plan in kind of a coordinated way. Because it's, and I know, but I also recognize the urgency of needing to move quickly, but we also want to do it in kind of a coordinated way. So I think my role as kind of the task force, the team lead, is to kind of gather everything, listen. I'm going to be looking at all the things that came in today, as well as I'm already getting a lot of other ideas and things, so that we can start to both assess the need and then look at all the options that we have. And of course, working with our FEMA and Cal OES partners, so we can start to chip away at this pretty quickly. So we will have regular updates. I think it's a little too soon to even say who's on it yet. Where there's a small group meeting tomorrow, and we're going to start fleshing that out. I think with any task force, the desires for everybody to want to be there, but we also know that if you have a task force of 100 people, then nothing's going to get done. And so it'll be kind of weighing that, so we have a core group of people. Doesn't mean other people won't be involved, but it may, but we need to be strategic in how we involve.
And it might be nice too to get to, at some point, understand the scope of the work that you're going to do, because I know that some of the things we talked about here, like mixed type housing and different fees for ADUs and all these different things, if that's not going to be in your world to start attacking at the city level and different municipalities, we need to start working on that, and I would hate for it to get dropped.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because a lot of things are coming in that may not be the task force's role and responsibility, but then making sure we get that to the right people. The other thing about it too is the Housing Recovery Task Force is just one of 10 or 12 that is under a larger umbrella in terms of the recovery effort. So once those get identified and fleshed out, then the county will be communicating what those all are, because it's a task force on volunteers and debris removal, and there's a whole host of things that go into the recovery effort in addition to the housing recovery. So we're just in the very first days of this, and so we will, I think it's really important that we communicate, and so that everyone knows what we're doing, and that we continue to keep those lines of communication open. So I want to thank you for having this first meeting, because it's really important and a good place to start.
How will that communication occur so that the community who's interested in some of those things gets word as to what you did, as people are deciding? Sorry, I don't have a voice.
I don't know the answer to that yet.
Because that's a real concern of mine, because what you're talking about, a lot of people in the community are looking beyond that, what you're talking about, so how do we get involved in that? If we're not part of that conversation.
There's been a void, there's been a vacuum, we've all felt it, okay? We're transitioning from, we're transitioning from a disaster response to a housing and sheltering. So the communication has been pretty lax as the county and FEMA have been addressing their concerns. The cities are beginning to engage in this discussion. I don't want you to think that tonight was the first time we heard a lot of these things. I can tell you definitively that things about ADUs and changes with zoning are already on a December 4th agenda. It's already things that I personally, I'm sure all of us here have had some communication with the city manager about placing these policies in place immediately, especially the 0 to 2 months. So those discussions are continuing. The communication will improve. I guarantee it. It's just not me personally doing it out of those meetings. So I don't know what that timeline is. The task force has to determine that, but there will be a much better line. The directive on the city.
Concerned about the communication outreaches out to the community.
And I think one of the things that Casey Hatcher in the county spoke to, which she's not here now, but trying to get those resources up and running hopefully by next week in terms of web-based places that people can go that we can start getting that information. So I think as soon as those are up and running, you're going to see a lot of information go out. And as Councilman Stone said, our communication will increase because it's critical that we get that information out.
Okay. And just to answer your thing, I probably over-communicate. I'm a communicator, and I will be communicating because that's what I do, and I can't help it.
Okay. First and foremost, the city and the county, Tammy, Ann, Randall, Deborah, Scott, Alex, I'm so happy you guys are on board. I can't even tell you, it brings tears to my eyes. Thank you.
And thank you. This is our job. I appreciate that, but it is the job, regardless of who is here. I can speak certainly for the entire community. I don't know anyone that didn't help in this event, and if they didn't, it's because they couldn't. There are some people that are really, really hurting that really could not step forward, and I'm asking you for compassion for those that you have seen have not stepped forward. There's probably a good darn reason for that.
Yeah, I just want to say, just in the county, almost 300 people, county employees, have lost their homes. So, as they are even every day working 12 hours a day at the local assistance center, all these people are dealing, as many of you here are dealing with just losing your home, and a place to go home at night. So this is beyond what any of us ever imagined or thought we were going to deal with, and that's why it has to be creative, and it's going to have to come from us. And I believe we can do that.
And it's going to have to take a long time. A long time.
But we are going to communicate.
You got a guy right here.
Oh, yes,
for a while.
There's a very large encampment up at Tuscan Ridge of PG&E employees. And we got a couple of reports at the Paradise Guild meeting tonight that conditions are really horrible for those guys. And that they're being discriminated against. They're being blamed as employees for starting this fire in a variety of ways. So, we started talking about maybe, take a PG&E guy to dinner or lunch or something like that. Whatever we can do to help support those guys. My nephew's one of them. And those guys are busting their butts.
I
Yes,
think at last count, and correct me if anybody's heard something different, but I believe 28 local PG&E people lost their homes.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so folks, please look for more communication from us. Thank you for your attention